Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhart, and in this video I am painting a sort of a surreal portrait of a person based on the Inktober 2023 prompt Path. So the idea for this is I'm going to have a person and they're wearing like a blazer and kind of opening it a bit, and you see like a path, like a foresty, spooky path. Like you would see in a landscape painting. So I'm sort of merging two elements to tell a story. And in this, I just went straight in. There is no preliminary sketch. What I've done is I'm just looking at a picture of my subject, but broken into values. So what I'm doing is I'm focusing on shapes. So when I'm painting, I'm not trying to paint a person, I'm trying to paint light and dark shapes, and that makes it much easier to try and paint without a sketch. The color I'm using right now is called Magic Wizard from Rockwell, Canada, and now I've gone in and dropped, well, it kind of looks like maybe, I don't know, obsidian brown? I think it may be obsidian brown. Because it's in the part of my palette where I keep a few dark values. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's obsidian brown, also by Rockwell, Canada. And this is on hot press paper. And this just really goes back to my focus on lights and darks. There are areas where I want to have a deep dark value, so I've pulled out a dark value paint. The color itself, while color does matter, what really matters for me in this is simplicity, because I'm trying to paint this in under 30 minutes. I have sped this up because otherwise it takes forever. And I've sped it up about 200%, so this painting, all in all, took about 20 minutes to do. Of course, I didn't include the drying time. There will be a spot where the video stops, I have to let it dry, and then I come right back to it. These paints are great because they are super granulating and they split. And by that I mean, so for example, I'm lifting some paint and that area is now very yellow. So Magic Wizard, for example, is kind of an earthy, bright brown, but also a vibrant, almost acid yellow, and there's even some pink in there. So a lot of these paints will split into multiple colors, and another reason I really like that is since I paint in values, even though value painting isn't boring, it brings a little more excitement because I do tend to get bored if I'm just using one thing all the time. But the fact that it will almost unpredictably split into a prism of a few colors, it makes it more interesting for me to work with. So that big shape that's going around my character, that is a tree from the path, and that's what I've lifted. That really bright yellow you see, that itself is the path that is coming from the jacket. And I've got the tree that is contained within the person coming out and wrapping around them. The hair is a dark value, so I'm going in and adding a darker paint to create the hair. Right, at this point, I'm putting in some of the features of the face. I'm using a smaller brush, and I'm not trying to paint an eye necessarily, paint the nose. I'm trying to put in roughly where they go and adding the shapes just so I know where they will be. Because of course, as watercolor dries, it does get paler. even though I am going in pretty dark. But that's what I'm doing right now, is I just need it to be where you look at it and your brain goes, oh yeah, that's a face. One of my favorite things to do is lift away paint to create a highlight or a lighter value, which is what I'm doing here. Hi, Valerie here. I just wanted to pop in real quick and ask, do you want to paint with bold, vibrant watercolor? Well, I teach you how to paint this beautiful, dare I say, elegant elephant using bright tube paints and lovely texture effects. Just go down to the link below, and it doesn't cost any money. Sign up and you get a free watercolor lesson along with the line art so you can follow along. Okay, back to the video. Welcome back. So the painting at this point has dried, and as you can see, the face, the shadows and the blocking I put in has dried a lot lighter. So now I'm going in with like a size 1 rigger brush to put in my features. And because this is a small painting, it's 8 by 10, and it's it's not a half body, it's like from the hips up. So I don't want to put in eyelashes and the individual hairs of the eyebrow. I just want to put in a darker value and focusing on shapes and the dark value, because it just needs to be convincing. I want it to be a little more detailed, a little more convincing. Wow, saying convincing a lot, it's kind of making it sound weird. But I'm going to keep going with it, because that's essentially what a lot of painting is if you're not like a photorealistic painter, you just want it to be enough to be convincing, but I don't know, leave a little mystery. And that's how I like to paint. I don't want to have a bunch of hard lines. I do like soft and hard. Here's some detail, and here's where some of it's really ambiguous. But at this stage of the painting is really going to be deepening values, and because with watercolor typically you paint light to dark, so since the painting's dried, I'm not going to really be adding any more light, and if I do, it's going to be with gouache. So here's where you add your darkest values. Now I'm focusing on that path inside of the person, sort of outlining it. And I didn't do this before because the paper was wet, and if I added those lines, they would bleed. And, well, there are some places that I want hard, with the hard edges, so you can more easily see what it's supposed to be. So I'm using that line there to separate the lapel from the path. And lifting a little more. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to lift the paint. Just be cautious when lifting paint while it's still wet. And I only say that because if you lift and then go back in and then lift and then add more, it can start to create undesirable colors and textures and start to look like mud and like that you weren't confident in what you were doing. So when you make a decision, I suggest stick with it. Usually the viewer isn't going to know. Like, you might think, oh, that's a glaring mistake. People aren't going to know. That's really hard to see because it's a little difficult to frame some of these portrait type paintings when I'm filming landscape. But right now I'm putting in the details of the hand, the lines that go between the finger, outlining that there's a thumb. And again, I don't want a bunch of like hard outlines. This isn't line art for a cartoon. I just need enough to separate my shapes. Now, over there on that sleeve, what I did was I glazed with a dark color. I think I used Cleopatra green because I wanted it to be cool. Cool colors will push things back, but I didn't want to make it dark, so doing just a glazing with a cooler color will push something back without having to adjust its value. Alright, and I'm going to call this painting finished. If you liked seeing this process, go ahead and give this video a like so I know to make more like it. And if you want to see more from me, just, push that subscribe button. I post every Thursday. Have a wonderful week. Bye.